This is the best and the worst of every town in the Triangle. So today I thought we would do something just a little bit different. Instead of doing a well-researched analytical discussion of some deep idea in the Raleigh area, I decided I would just share my personal feelings about every different town in the Triangle. The one thing that I personally love about every town in the Triangle, and the one thing that I personally hate about every town in the Triangle.
Raleigh.
Okay, so probably my favorite thing about Raleigh is that museum complex, the History Museum and the Science Museum. I could spend hours and hours in either one of those. And generally, I don't really go into Raleigh very often. I live in Holly Springs. I spend a lot of time in the suburbs. All of the suburbs, really. I kind of visit all of them frequently, but I don't spend a lot of time in Raleigh. But if I'm going to go to Raleigh, it's probably to go to a museum. The thing that I hate about Raleigh, you know, it might be because I've lived here for a long time, but I feel like a lot of the architecture is so similar. I think a lot of people that come from different areas, they like the architecture here because it's different than what they're used to. But to me, it's really kind of looks very much the same, and there's not enough variety with it. And that we don't have basements. I hate that we don't have basements in Raleigh. I really have not thought about this at all in advance. Probably my favorite thing about Cary is the downtown area, the library complex, all the breweries and how they make everything kind of fun and engaging and walkable and change things out at different times of year. I love the way the architecture is kind of developing down there and how different things are looking. I really like the kind of new modernist type look that they're building. A lot of people hate it, and there's a lot of people that complain about it and say it's not North Carolina. I think it's pretty cool.
Worst of Cary.
The worst of Cary. What is the worst of Cary? What do I dislike about Cary? I like Cary. I think the worst of Cary, okay, this is gonna sound terrible, is the downtown bickering about like new versus old, kind of like the old guard and the new guard sort of thing. If you get onto like Facebook or any kind of online area where people are talking, and there's the natives and there's the new people, there's just, nobody wants Cary. I shouldn't say nobody. There's a lot of people that don't want Cary to grow. I think if something's not growing, it's dying. You can't keep something the same. And while we can kind of miss the things that have passed, you just can't keep it the same. Life is about growth, and things grow and change. Everything does. And so I just hate that idea that we want to keep everything the same and we don't want anything to change. I just think it's terrible. That's just not the way life is. And there's some decent amount of that kind of conversation always happening around Cary. The best thing about Morrisville, so Morrisville has this one little park. I don't spend a ton of time in Morrisville. Morrisville's pretty small, so it's not someplace that I will go for anything in particular. But when my kids were little, we lived in Morrisville for a short while. We rented an apartment there when we first moved to North Carolina. But anyway, there's this little park in Morrisville, and it's connected by a pretty big greenway system. And it had one of the coolest like playgrounds with some really tall like slides and things that was unique to the Triangle. My kids always really loved that particular playground. So when I think of what I like about Morrisville, that's what comes to mind. It's the Morrisville Community Park. I think what I dislike about Morrisville is it is so much like Cary that I always forget that it exists, to be honest with you. I often forget to put it in my videos. I often forget to write anything about it. It's a little bit forgettable. It's this little tiny little pocket that seems just like a corner of Cary. Doesn't really have much of its own character. But there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of traffic. The road development has really not kept pace. Cary's road development has kept pace a lot better than Morrisville's has. So.
Best of Apex.
It might be a toss-up. So Apex's downtown is arguably really, really cool. Lots of cute shops and restaurants and things to do down there. But there's also another park, the Apex Nature Park, where they've got a big amphitheater, they've got disc golf, they've got the beautiful trails. It's like a nature preserve sort of thing. The ponds are just full of this beautiful like flora and fauna, beautiful plant life, and lots of wildlife kind of jumping into the pond and flying around. It's a really cool little place. So I think it's a toss-up between those two. What I don't care for about Apex is it seems really vanilla to me. It seems like everything is about like kids sports, which I'm not a sports person. My kids were never into sports, and it seems like everything kind of revolves around that. That's just never been my thing, so I don't care for it. The best of Fuquay. So when I go to Fuquay, my favorite thing to do, and this is going to sound really crazy and weird, but I really like pretty architecture. And if you drive down into downtown Fuquay, which is the second downtown, so there's a northern downtown, which is Verena, and there's a southern downtown, which is Fuquay. If you drive through Fuquay and turn left on any of those streets heading into town, or heading, into the more residential section from the downtown, all of those streets are really beautiful. There's a lot of older homes that are just have so much character, and they're so pretty. It's one of the most beautiful areas of Southern Lake County, I think. So I will sometimes just go down there just to drive through those neighborhoods. I just think they're really pretty.
What don't you like?
Well, nobody likes the traffic in Fuquay. That's not just me. Probably anybody online that's talking about stuff they hate about Fuquay, it's going to be the traffic.
And here we sit. The traffic in Fuquay is not good.
But there's a number two. There's some industrial sections of Fuquay that are kind of ugly. I do think they're getting cleaned up, but like the area kind of between Verena and Fuquay, it's all kind of ratty and old. And sometimes people that are new to the area will drive through there and they'll be like, this is not my kind of place. But just keep going. It gets really pretty if you just pass through that section.
The best of Holly Springs.
Well, today it's Bass Lake Park. I love everything about Holly Springs. But today it's Bass Lake Park. I love going over there. I happen to live about 5 minutes from there, so I can just pop over and walk on the trails. And there are so many ducks, and I have kind of a duck fetish. I really love animals in general, but little ducks, when they wag their little tails when they get out of the pond, and they're just adorable. I love them. So that's my favorite thing. Oh my gosh, why can't I make a left turn? Why can't I make a left turn? I don't understand. I know they designed it to try and keep the traffic free flowing. And I will say it does flow better in Holly Springs than it does in Fuquay. So the left turn thing must have helped. But it's really annoying to have to go all the way up and all the way, make a U-turn, come all the way back down to avoid the left-hand turn, which is what the traffic patterns force you to do.
Best of Garner.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there's some pretty cool parks in Garner. What is it? Deer something park? Some kind of park with a deer in it. It's right across the street from that other big park, but those are really cool parks. They've got great trails. They're beautiful, just wide open spaces, and they just, they're great places just to go hang out or get some exercise or let your kids play. There doesn't seem to be any like locally owned stuff. Everything in Garner is like a big box store or a franchise or something like that. Like I don't get that. I don't know why they don't, but hopefully that's changing. But every time I check to see if there's anything new in Garner, there's nothing new in the way of like new businesses that are owned by locals. So I don't know. If you've heard of some, drop them in the comments, because I'd really like to know, but I never find anything new going on in Garner other than more houses being built.
What about Clayton?
Probably the best thing about Clayton is the Neuse River Greenway. That's a great greenway. It's beautiful. Obviously there's a pattern here. I like the outdoors. Yeah, so that's what I would say.
What about the downtown in Clayton?
Downtown is super cute. Love the downtown in Clayton. Yeah, very, very cool downtown. Lots of cool little breweries and shops and stuff opening up there. They have like, I think Friday nights or whatever, they have these outdoor kind of community events where all the stores stay open and they put kind of stuff out and have drinks and food trucks and music and things like that. And so it's very, just very community focused and fun. So downtown's really cool. I mean, I-70 is kind of ugly there. You got your kind of big billboard signs. It feels more poor and rural than anywhere else, like in the Triangle. And I think it's because of those big billboard signs. That's not really the case with Clayton. It is a great, warm, welcoming community, but that I-70 just kind of has that ugly kind of feel to me.
Nightdale.
I'd have to say the best of is that brewery. I don't know what it's called, but there's a brewery on, I think it's First Street, and it backs up to Nightdale Station Park, and it's a very family-friendly brewery, and because it opens up to the park, you can people just go hang out on the back, picnic tables and stuff, and just let their kids run out into the park and play. And the owner's really, really friendly, and it's almost like that kind of Cheers feeling, like everybody knows your name.
What's not to like about Nightdale?
Probably the worst thing about Nightdale is they don't really have a downtown. There's no shops. It's actually interesting. Downtown Nightdale actually burned down in the 1950s and they never did rebuild it. But what's really cool is in January of 2023, they actually approved a plan to rebuild a downtown area that looks incredibly cool, probably way better than what it originally was. And so they will eventually have a downtown again.
Wendell.
I like that little general store. There's a little general store in downtown that's really cool. It just feels so old-timey to me. It's, got like the big barrels of candy and just all kinds of different knick-knacky sort of things that you can buy, and, food and drinks and ice cream. And we've been in there at times when, teenagers or preteens, pretty young enough kids that it's fun to see kids that age kind of out by themselves, but old enough that they're old enough to be, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids can just kind of go hang out there and play games on the checker tables or whatever and grab a Coke. It's just that it has that like hometown kind of feel that it's hard to find anymore, but Wendell kind of has that feel to it, and the general store kind of is the embodiment of that. So I really like that little place. I mean, it's a little far removed from stuff, so it's kind of on the east side of town and a lot of development. There are like a few parks and things over there, but not a ton. So you got to go a little ways, maybe half an hour to get to some decent types of amenities.
What about Wendell Falls?
Wendell Falls is beautiful, but it's just a neighborhood, I mean, it's a beautiful neighborhood. I think it's super popular for good reason, and I think it will continue to grow, and I think Wendell will continue to grow. But I mean, it's a neighborhood. It's pretty.
Zebulon.
The best thing about Zebulon is that it still has this up-and-coming feel to it. So the downtown has just really blossomed in the last year, and lots of new businesses are coming. There's a really cool boutique in downtown Zebulon. There's a guy that makes bagpipes in downtown Zebulon. We went and visited him before. I mean, it's like all kinds of unique sorts of little places. And so it's a fun place to visit, and people are super friendly because it's really a small town. I mean, Zebulon's tiny. And so people treat you like you're a person, you're not a number. It's that small. And I just really like that. You can just strike up a conversation with somebody in any store and they'll sit and talk to you. I just think it's really cool.
Anything to dislike about Zebulon?
Zebulon's far from stuff. It's country. And so that downtown is where you're going to do your shopping. I mean, you got to go 25, 30 minutes to get to Nightdale, and you get your big box stores there. So if that doesn't bother you, then, it's no big deal, but it's far removed from stuff.
Wake Forest.
I love Wake Forest. The best thing about Wake Forest is Joyner Park. I love Joyner Park. That's gotta be the best park in the Triangle as far as I'm concerned. It's hilly. It's got the beautiful old buildings that used to be the farm buildings, which I just find historic buildings like that. I don't know. I just think about the people that used to go into that chicken coop and feed the chickens every day, and the kids that grew up there feeding chickens and, whatever farming, whatever crops were there. And they left all of that kind of as like a museum almost. And I just love it. I just think it's the coolest place. It's beautiful. There's beautiful trails. There's some really cool playground areas for kids, really, really creative type of playgrounds. And there's a community center with all kinds of classes and things that you can take there. But that park is incredible. And the downtown is incredible too, but I love that park. The location of Wake Forest, I don't care for. It's just, you have to go up the Capitol and 401 corridor, which is just full of car dealerships and commercial type stuff that's, not very interesting, older strip malls and things like that. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of traffic. Don't ever ask me to show you a house at rush hour in Wake Forest, because I'll say yes, but I won't like it.
Rollsville.
So Rollsville is, the best thing about Rollsville is that it's 10 minutes from Wake Forest, in my mind.
And the worst.
And the worst thing about Rollsville is it's $600,000 to buy a house when it's 10 minutes from Wake Forest.
Lewisburg.
Lewisburg, the best thing about Lewisburg is how incredibly quaint. Okay, so there's quaint downtowns with beautiful architecture, and then there's downtowns with beautiful architecture. And Lewisburg has these incredible stately homes. Like, it probably was a very wealthy town at one point, because these homes in the downtown are these big mansion type homes on an acre or 3, something like that. And many of them are in pretty good repair, and they look beautiful, but I love driving through their downtown. The worst is it's the county seat, and so like half the town is taken up by government buildings, the courthouse and 500 attorneys. I guess people going to court and needing an attorney are all right there. It's really weird. The best thing about Anger is Sunny Skies ice cream. People will drive from all over the triangle to go down to Sunny Skies. It's like this old-timey ice cream place. They only take cash. They're only open during the season. They close for like the winter or whatever. But people will just come and hang out there. And there's long lines, and you got to have cash ready. But it's a cool place to get really good homemade ice cream and just hang out and talk to people. The downtown's a little, there's not great shops in the downtown. It hasn't really taken off like a lot of other downtowns in the area have. Not any like boutiques that I know of that I can think of. I could be wrong about that, so let me know if I'm wrong. This is not a research video.
Pittsburgh.
The best thing about Pittsburgh is it's very, urban farming is a big thing. So you'll see a lot of like homes that have like chicken coops, and it's a great place to have a little small farm or a urban farm. And I happen to love chickens and all little farm animals, goats and things like that. And you'll see that kind of thing frequently in Pittsburgh. And I was going to say, what I don't like, maybe I shouldn't say this. Should I say this? Okay, so a lot of the houses that are being built there are these big luxury homes, which I actually love big luxury homes. I do. I love beautiful architecture. I love beautiful decor. What I don't love about big, beautiful homes like that is you're not allowed to have goats or chickens usually on the property, which bugs me. I want both. Why can't I have a big, beautiful home and goats and chickens in a neighborhood so I can be around people? I like people. I want to have neighbors, but I also want to have goats. There are actually a few neighborhoods in Pittsburgh where you can do that. They're actual subdivisions, but their covenants do allow you to have chickens and goats. So ask me if you're interested to know which they are.
Chapel Hill.
The best thing about Chapel Hill. Okay, so the best thing about Chapel Hill, and this actually goes for Durham as well. We're going to say both Durham and Chapel Hill at the same time. Or maybe not. So Chapel Hill is a lot artsier than the other towns in the Triangle. And one really cool thing about that is if you're looking for interesting, like mid-century kind of architecture, very unique, very, just artistic, Chapel Hill is where you're going to find it. I personally wouldn't want to live in a college town. We lived in Charlottesville, Virginia when Timothy was in grad school, and the whole students coming into town and everything being crazy and trafficky, and then they leave in the summer. I don't know. I'm not a big college town sort of person. I like them being nearby because of what it brings to the city, but where the college dominates a small town and it's like half of the population, I don't like that. But that's just me.
All right, what about Durham?
So Probably my favorite thing about Durham is Duke Gardens. I love gardens. I love fish. So they've got this huge pond, and I've always wanted a koi pond, and I will have one day. But they've got this huge koi pond, and the fish just come up, and you can feed them. Are you supposed to feed them? I don't know. You're not supposed to feed them, whatever. But they come up asking for food, and I wish I could give it to them. But they're super cute, and I love all the beautiful plants and flowers and trees. And I'm one of those people that'll just go through and like rub all the herbs and smell them. So I just love the smell of all the different plants that have such unique smells. I love that place. I could spend hours there.
And what's not to like about Durham?
To me, there's two kinds of people in Durham. There's the locals who are from Durham, and then there's the Duke crowd. And the Duke crowd all seem to come from larger cities. And the locals are all kind of North Carolina. So you get this very different vibe from each different group. The locals, when you see them, they smile, they say hi, they'll chat with you. When you see the Duke crowd, they don't make eye contact because they're from the city. I've tried to figure out what it is, but it's just not very friendly. That crowd has a very unfriendly feel to it, to me. And I'm just talking about like from going into coffee shops, and like when you go into coffee shops, not in Durham, in small towns in Wake County, people smile at you, they say hello. When you go into that coffee shop in the American Tobacco District, no one really acknowledges you or looks at you, or it's just a very different kind of vibe. It feels big city to me, and I don't like that. Some people like that. Like a lot of people that come from cities, they're like, man, don't talk to me. They're uncomfortable with people being too overly friendly. I happen to really like it, and I don't like that big city feel. So it's got more of a city feel to it than I think anywhere else in the Triangle. And to me, that's a con, but it might be a pro to somebody else. So I've never done a video like this one before. I'd really love to know if you guys actually liked it, if you'd prefer me to do some more kind of off-the-cuff videos to know what I really think about stuff, rather than all of the scripted stuff where I've researched everything. But you might also like this video where I did a lot of research to get real information for you guys.